Okay, in this video we're going to discuss composing and decomposing fractions. So a couple of quick things before we get started. We want to point out that when we say compose, we are talking about putting fractions together. And then we're talking about decomposing, we're talking about the opposite, which is to take them apart. Okay, so that'll be important information to know. So compose means put together, decompose means take apart. Okay, so we'll start by composing fractions. So if we can use all kinds of different strategies, but we can use models. So we'll use a shape model here. So if I had one, two, three, four triangles, and let's say I shaded in one, two, three of those four triangles, we could say that, we got one, two, three, four. So that would be 1/4 of the triangles. That would be another 1/4 of the triangles. That would be another 1/4. Okay. Now, if we had all four of them, that would make the whole. So we don't. We only have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. So we only have 3/4 of the triangle. And so what we do when we break it down into each individual fourth, these are called unit fractions. So unit fractions are when we break each, so here we're dealing with fourths, we break each piece of the whole down into individual units. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. That gave us 3/4. If we had all the fourths, we would have one whole. Okay, so another example would be if we used a different type of model instead of just the shape model, we could use like a fraction strip. So we had this rectangle, and we say the rectangle represents one whole, and then we take the one whole, and then we break it up. We could say fourths, but even we could go further. Let's cut this one into eighths. Okay, so let's say we shade it in. There's one, and we don't even have to shade them all right beside of each other. We could say one, two, and then three, four. How about five? We'll do five of them. Okay, so if we look, the whole is broken into eighths. So we got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 pieces. So we know we're dealing with eighths. So the denominator of our unit fractions will be eighths. And then the numerator of each fraction is, how many, what are we dealing with? So we're dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5/8 of our whole shaded. Now, if we wanted to break that down, so this time what we're doing is decomposing. We're about to decompose. So take apart 5/8. We're going to take apart 5/8 and put it into individual unit fractions. And we can do that by writing an equation. So we're going to put our equal sign. So if I wanted to say, okay, that's 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 gives me 5/8. So we'll break it down just like that. So there's 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. And there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we could do that. We could also mix and match. We could also write this equation. Okay, we could also say, all right, well, I see 1, 2 together, so there's 2/8 plus another 2/8 and then there's just the 1 by itself. Okay, that is still true. Okay, we could still say that, okay, because there's 2/8 plus 2/8 is 4/8 plus 1/8 is 5/8. We could also break it down in a different way. There's all kinds of different combinations here. We could say 1, 2, 3/8 plus 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3/8 plus 2 more eighths. And that would about row equals 5/8, but we already started there. So again, there's another way. And we could even go a little bit further and say 5/8 is equal to 4/8 plus 1/8. So there's all kinds of different ways that we can decompose or compose fractions. Okay, again, if, for example, we could start with a different type of model, and then this one I'm going to let you practice. So after, when we get to the questions, you can pause the video and see if you can decompose. So we have a hole. That's our hole. We're going to cut the hole. Let's do fourths. Okay. Actually, let's do eighths again. So we're going to cut this hole to 8 equal sized pieces. And let's say we got this one shaded. This one. And this one. Okay. So we can say that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total pieces. So take a moment yourself and figure out what fraction, what entire complete fraction is being shown by this model. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead now. Again, remember, pause the video. But we have 8 total pieces. How many are being used? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3/8. Okay. Now I'll give you an opportunity again to pause the video. I would like you to see if you can decompose this fraction in as many ways as you can, just like the last example. Okay, so one way would be to say, okay, well, 3/8, we're just going to break it down again into our unit fractions. We are going to say that it could be 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. Or you could have also said 3/8 equals, you could do 2/8 plus 1/8. Or you could have flipped it and said 1/8 plus 2/8. You could have used the commutative property of addition. Okay, so again, it's not a incredibly complex thing to do to decompose and compose fractions, but it just helps you think of the individual pieces or the unit fractions. Again, what we did is we looked at modeling, we looked at how to compose fractions by looking at the models, and we also talked about how to decompose those fractions into their unit fraction forms.